What happens if all nuclear weapons explode? The simultaneous detonation of the world's estimated 12,000+ nuclear warheads currently held by 9 nations, with the vast majority belonging to the United States and Russia, would not merely be a massive war, it would be a catastrophic event leading to a global-scale environmental and societal collapse, ultimately risking the extinction of human civilization. It's a scenario often referred to as a nuclear holocaust. The immediate cataclysm, the Day of Fire. The initial moments of a global nuclear exchange would be defined by sheer, unimaginable destructive power, far beyond the scale of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The energy release would be equivalent to hundreds of thousands of times the power of the first atomic bombs. Fire blast, heat, and firestorms. Massive destruction. Thousands of megatons of explosive energy would be released. Cities, military bases, and industrial centers targeted would be utterly obliterated. The blast waves would level nearly all structures for miles, causing massive casualties from collapsing buildings and flying debris. Fire blast, heat, and firestorms. Massive destruction. Thousands of megatons of explosive energy would be released. Cities, military bases, and industrial centers targeted would be utterly obliterated. The blast waves would level nearly all structures for miles, causing massive casualties from collapsing buildings and flying debris. Intense thermal radiation. The heat generated by the nuclear fireballs would be hotter than the sun's core, instantly vaporizing objects near ground zero. Thermal radiation would cause third-degree burns across massive areas, igniting widespread, massive firestorms that would engulf entire metropolitan areas. These firestorms would consume all available oxygen, suffocating many initial survivors, and generate immense plumes of smoke and soot. Prompt radiation. An immediate, lethal burst of gamma rays and neutrons would cause rapid death and severe radiation sickness in anyone close to the detonation points. High-voltage sine electromagnetic pulse, EMP. Nuclear explosions, particularly high-altitude bursts, would generate a colossal electromagnetic pulse, EMP. This burst of energy would overload and permanently damage most electronic equipment that isn't hardened against it. Technological collapse. The EMP would likely knock out the vast majority of the global power grid, communications networks, internet infrastructure, satellites, and unshielded vehicles. Modern society relies entirely on these systems, meaning the immediate destruction would be compounded by a return to pre-industrial conditions for any survivors. The environmental nightmare, nuclear winter. The most profound, long-term threat to life comes from the climatic aftermath, known as nuclear winter. This is the mechanism by which a localized tragedy becomes a global catastrophe. New moon symbol sky darkening soot. Stratospheric injection. The millions of tons of black, sooty smoke from the firestorms, burning cities, forests, and oil gas facilities, would be lofted by the intense heat into the stratosphere, the upper layer of the atmosphere. Unlike smoke in the lower atmosphere, this soot would not be washed out by rain. Global smoke veil. Within weeks, the smoke would spread globally, creating a persistent, thick, dark veil encircling the Earth, especially over the northern hemisphere. This veil would block out the sun's rays, causing a profound anti-greenhouse effect. Global temperature plunge. Global average surface temperatures would plummet, potentially by as much as 15-20°/circ/text, c. about 27-36°/circ/text, f. in continental interiors during the first few years. Summer-like conditions would turn to freezing, with temperatures perhaps matching or even falling below those of the last ice age. Era of rice nuclear famine. This deep, prolonged global cooling, accompanied by drastic reductions in precipitation, the hydrological cycle would be weakened, potentially cutting rainfall by nearly 50%, would lead to the complete failure of global agriculture for at least 1 to 3 growing seasons. Crop collapse. Mass die-offs of crops, livestock, and nearly all plant life would occur worldwide. The global food supply chains would be instantly severed, and local food production would become impossible. Mass starvation. Even in nations far removed from the war zones, the resulting nuclear famine would be the single greatest cause of death. Scientific models predict that a full-scale nuclear war could lead to the starvation of over 5 billion people, far outstripping the direct casualties of the bombs. Biohazard symbol # the toxic aftermath, radiation and ozone. Beyond the blast and the climate, the radioactive and chemical contamination would make long-term survival extremely challenging. Skull-deadly radioactive fallout. Widespread contamination. Surface bursts would suck tons of pulverized soil and debris into the mushroom cloud, which would become highly radioactive. This material, the fallout, would rain down hundreds and thousands of miles downwind. Radiation sickness. Exposure to lethal doses of residual radiation would kill millions slowly through radiation sickness, leading to organ failure and immune system collapse. Genetic damage. Long-term, non-lethal exposure would result in a massive spike in cancers, birth defects, and genetic damage for generations. Sun with rays. Ozone layer destruction. The massive amounts of nitrogen oxides generated by the nuclear fireballs would ascend into the stratosphere and systematically destroy the Earth's ozone layer. UV radiation spike. Once the black soot clears, which could take years, the planet would be exposed to extremely high levels of harmful ultraviolet, UV, radiation. UV radiation levels could increase by 200% to 400%. Biological harm. This spike would severely damage surviving plant life, plankton, the base of the marine food web, and cause widespread skin cancer, blindness, and immunosuppression in humans and animals, further crippling any attempts at recovery. The New World, a bleak future. A full nuclear exchange would essentially dismantle the modern world and revert much of the planet's ecosystem to a hostile, barely habitable state. Societal breakdown. With no power, communication, medicine, or functional governance, any remaining survivors would face a protracted struggle for existence, battling intense cold, famine, disease, and the long-term effects of radiation. Long-term environmental change. The cooling of the oceans would be measured in decades or even centuries, and expanded sea ice would permanently alter global shipping and fishing. Many species would face extinction due to the rapid climate shift and the collapse of the food web. A world without civilization. The complex systems that sustain billions of people, agriculture, global trade, technology, and governance would be utterly destroyed, making a rapid return to civilization virtually impossible. In summary, the explosion of the entire global nuclear arsenal would not be the end of the planet, but it would be the end of the world as we know it. The immediate destruction would be horrific, but the subsequent nuclear winter and famine would ensure the death of billions, leaving only isolated, struggling pockets of humanity to face a toxic, dark, and cold world with a crippled ecosystem and no hope of quick recovery.